So with the past few patches being absolute snooze fest, Riot's finally hitting us with a massive one for 26.9, as it's going to feature a total of 14 item or rune changes, with 3 of them being brand new items and 2 of them being brand new runes. And on top of this, we have got a bunch of champion changes as well. So let's break it all down and provide you guys with everything that you need to know for when 26.9 hits live servers this upcoming Wednesday, April 29th. And don't you hate it how every stat site on the internet just auto-generates their stats? It litters them with Google ads and then AFKs, just baiting players into terrible builds via those misleading stats. Well, that's why we just launched the best build site for League of Legends that actually has our team of challenger players working with the stats to explain why you should run each build, when to pivot, and what to avoid. And with the all-new item and rune changes being issued for this patch that we're going to talk about here in just a sec, you can bet we'll be working hard on updating everything so that you can take advantage of the most optimal new setups before everybody else does. And it's totally free, so why wouldn't you try it? Check it out right after this. And of course, if you want our famously effective courses behind the builds that teach you how to actually carry games and climb fast, use our special discount link in the description below. And with that being said, let's get into it. So let's start off the video by covering all of the item and rune changes that are going to be issued for this patch. We've got a buff to Endless Hunger on the way, with its melee ability haste being increased from 10% of your bonus AD to 13% of your bonus AD. The range scaling is going to remain the same at 10%. Hecarim is the one melee champ who's been building Endless Hunger at a high rate in recent patches, so he's definitely going to be the one liking this one the most, while a few others could be Ambessa, Zahin, and Riven. They could also look to benefit as well. Hubris has been one of the most OP items in recent patches, so Riot is going to be nerfing it for 26.9, with its AD dropping from 60 to 55, while its AD per stack is going to go up from 2 to 3. So this is going to be a net nerf because the flat AD that you're losing is going to be more consistently impactful compared to the AD you get per stack. The Comet rune is going to be changed for this patch, with its base damage going down from 30 scaling to 130 to 15 scaling to 100. However, the damage is going to be increased from 0 to 100% based on the distance away from your opponent. As long as you're 750 units away, then you're going to receive the max 100% increase in damage. The item Axiom Arc is being adjusted for this patch so that the base cooldown reduction of the passive is dropping from 15 to 10%. However, the lethality ratio is going to go up from 0.15 to 0.25% per 1 point of lethality. So this changes to incentivize multiple lethality items in your build if you're taking Axiom Arc, which means Riven ain't gonna be liking this one that much. We have got a brand new Keystone rune being added to the sorcery tree, and it's called Deathfire Touch. Now, if you're an OG League player, then you'd remember this rune from way back in Season 6, and it's gonna work a whole lot similar to where your abilities deal burn damage. After burning an enemy for 3 seconds, the damage is gonna be increased by 100%. So champions with a lot of consistent damage potential, they're gonna be liking this one a lot. There's gonna be a few brand new items added for this patch, and the first one is called Doran's Helm. Item will cost 450 gold and provide you with 110 health, 10 armor, 10 magic resist, and a passive that deals 5 bonus damage to minions. Doran's Bow is the second new starting item, and it's going to give you 6 AD, 15% attack speed, and 1.5% Omnivamp for a cost of 400 gold. We have some new boots being added for 26.9 called Gluttonous Greaves. They're going to cost 950 gold and provide you with 45 movement speed and 4% Omnivamp. They also have a passive that grants 1% Omnivamp when killing a champion. So, a very offensive set of boots, and it's going to be really interesting to see which bruisers find themselves taking the item, as the majority of them previous to this item would just default to steel caps or merc treads. Dusk and Dawn is going to be adjusted in a pretty big way so that the health is down from 350 to 300, the ability power is going down from 70 to 60, attack speed is going to be dropping from 25 to 20%, while the Spellblade effect is now also going to have a heal that scales off 10% AP and 3% bonus health. So the offensive power is being taken away from Dusk and Dawn in exchange for some added sustain, which should definitely be bad for an assassin like Echo, but fine for champs with more consistent skirmish strength. Think like Volibear, Gwen, Kayle, and Shyvana. Looking at the most popular Dusk and Dawn users, Echo is the only true assassin who's been running Dusk and Dawn at a high rate, so he's likely the one champ that's going to be affected the most by these adjustments. We've got some changes to Hail of Blades on the way, with the bonus attack speed dropping from 160 to 120% for melee champs and from 80 to 60% for ranged champs. There's also going to be a new effect added though, so that the empowered attacks now deal bonus true damage. One of the more forgotten support items is going to be buffed for this patch, as Staff of Flowing Water is going to have its haste lowered from 15 to 10, passive AP lowered from 45 to 40. However, the passive is now going to grant 15 ability haste. Static Shiv is going to be completely reworked, as the stats you're going to receive from this item is now going to consist of 40 AD, 40 AP, 30% attack speed, and 4% movement speed for a cost of 3,000 gold. The passive will still have the same chain lightning effect, but it's going to be even stronger now, so that it's now going to apply on-hit effects to targets other than the primary target. So there's a lot of crazy potential item combinations that are happening here that we could see come out of this passive change. But at first glance, we're likely looking at Katarina and Kai'Sa to be the champs that are liking the item the most due to the mixed damage profile that you're going to be getting. Another new rune being added to the sorcery tree for this patch and taking the place of Phase Rush is Storm Raider's Surge. Storm Raiders is going to work so that dealing 25% of an enemy's max health within 3 seconds grants you 40% bonus movement speed and 50% slow resist for 3 seconds. So a more aggressive version of Phase Rush that actually requires you to fully commit to a trade, which should be a lot more healthy in the long run. Voltaic Cyclosword is going to receive a mini rework, with the cost going down from 3,000 to 2,900 gold, and lethality is being reduced from 18 to 10. The old passive would stack the energized attack 75% faster based on distance traveled, but that's being totally removed, and instead your abilities are now going to be able to trigger energized effects. The second part of the passive is being changed as well, so that instead of your next basic attack dealing 100 bonus physical damage and slowing the target hit, you're now going to deal bonus physical damage equal to 10% of the target's current health and be granted 15 lethality for 4 seconds. So a fighter like Aatrox probably ain't going to like Cyclosword as much due to the slow being removed, but a spellcasting assassin like Zed is more likely to benefit from the changes due to the fact that he can now proc the passive damage from his abilities. So that is all of the item and rune changes. Now moving on to the champion changes. We've got Gragas on the buff list with his W damage reduction being increased from 10 scaling to 18% to 10 scaling to 26%. Tahm Kench is next up for a few buffs, with his E-Gray health to health conversion being changed from 45 scaling to 100% to 60 scaling to 100%. And on top of this, our Devour ally movement speed is going up from 40 to 60%. Talia is going to be buffed so that her Q base damage is up from 50 scaling to 120 to 55 scaling to 125, while Q bonus monster damage is down from 23 scaling to 43 to 20 scaling to 40. We've got a Warwick buff on the way, with his passive on-hit damage going up from 6 scaling to 46 to 6 scaling to 55. Ambessa is on the nerf list for this patch, as her R cast time is being increased from 0.55 seconds to 0.7 seconds. So now you've got a little bit more time to react and flash Ambessa's R if you're an opponent, and this is going to be interesting to track as to how much power she actually loses here. Briar is going to receive a base stat nerf, with her health growth going down from 100 to 95. Riot has a bunch of changes for Ezreal that's going to heavily increase the strength of double tier builds, with Archangels likely becoming a core purchase here. QAP ratio is going up from 15 to 40%, WAP ratio is being increased from 70 scaling to 90% to 90% flat, and then RAP ratio is going up from 90 to 110%. AD Kennen builds are going to gain a bit of viability for this patch, with his W-empowered auto attack now being able to critically strike for 140% bonus damage. It does also look like there's a change being added so that the empowered damage is also going to be applied by the bolts from Runeon's Hurricane, and then a change to ease being issued as well, so that crits now extend the attack speed duration by 1 second. So could we possibly see something like a Shiv into Hurricane build on Kennen for this patch? Who knows if it's actually going to be viable at all, but if there's a new build that becomes strong for Kennen, you know we're going to have it updated on our brand new build site that we talked about earlier within the first few days of the patch being live. Riot has a ton of Shyvana changes in the pipeline for 26.9, so let's break them all down. The base stats are going to be changed, with base attack speed going up from 0.625 to 0.638. Attack speed ratio is dropping from 0.69 to 0.638, while AD growth is up from 3 to 4. Q passive damage is going to no longer scale off of AP. Q on hit cooldown reduction is nerfed, going from 1 to 0.5 seconds. Q active is going to have its AP ratio increased from 25 to 30%. W cooldown is going down from 14 scaling to 12 seconds to 13 scaling to 9 seconds. W shield is adjusted so that the base value is up from 60 scaling to 140 to 75 scaling to 155, all while the ratio is being changed as well, from a 5% max health ratio to a 12% bonus health ratio. W damage is no longer going to have a 40% bonus AD ratio, and instead, the AP ratio is going up from 20 to 65%. W Dragon Form heal is being heavily simplified, as instead of the heal scaling with AD and AP, you're now just going to heal for 60 scaling to 100 plus 4 scaling to 8% missing health. And then E is going to be adjusted so that the cooldown is dropping from 12 scaling to 10 seconds to 12 scaling to 8 seconds. E damage is going to be changed, with the AD ratio being removed. The AP ratio is going up when you have the spell fully maxed out, and you're now going to have 5% max health damage. And the slow from E is going to be changed from 20 scaling to 40% to 30% flat. So, on paper, it's looking like AP builds may become a bit stronger for 26.9, so we are going to be sure to keep you guys updated on our brand new build site if there's a new optimal Shyvana build that you're going to want to run. Zeri is another champion with a mass amount of changes for 26.9, so listen up. Her auto range is going up from 500 to 550. Passive execute threshold is going up from 60 scaling to 150 to 70 scaling to 160, with AP ratio being increased from 18 to 20%. Q base damage is up from 15 scaling to 23 to 21 scaling to 33. However, the AD ratio is dropping from 1.04 scaling to 1.2 to 1.02 scaling to 1.1. Q excess attack speed to AD conversion is going down from 70 to 50%. W wall crit multiplier is down from 1.75 to 1.5. W AP ratio is going up from 25 to 50%. E base damage on hit is up from 17 scaling to 25 to 22 scaling to 30. However, the 10% bonus AD ratio is being removed. E cooldown is up from 22 to 24 seconds. The cooldown refresh on E is now going to work when hitting anything instead of just champions. Our burst AD ratio is going down from 100 to 60%. Our movement speed per stack is up from 1 to 1.5%, and then our stack duration is up from 1.5 to 2.5 seconds. Zoe's in line for a few adjustments as her E is now going to be refunded for 16 scaling to 30% of the cooldown when it hits a champion. E cooldown is going to be going up from 16 scaling to 12 seconds to 18 scaling to 14 seconds to compensate. W total bolt damage is going down from 60 scaling to 180 to 45 scaling to 165, while AP ratio drops as well from 45 to 30%. Teemo is going to be adjusted for this patch so that his E is now applied as an on-hit effect. E on-hit damage is now going to scale with 10% bonus AD, and poison damage per tick now scales with 5% bonus AD. Udyr is going to receive a bunch of changes to his Q, as on-hit base damage is being changed from 5 scaling to 45 to 6 scaling to 36. Q on-hit bonus AD ratio is down from 25 to 20%. Q on-hit now scales with 1.5% max health. Q active bonus AD ratio is being reduced from 4% to 3.5%. Empowered Q bonus AD ratio drops from 7 to 5%. Empowered Q will now scale with 1% per 100 bonus health. W shield is now going to scale with 50% bonus AD. Empowered W shield is now going to scale with 100% bonus AD. Empowered W heal is going to scale with 50% bonus AD. E speed is now going to scale with 5% per 100 bonus AD. And empowered E movement speed is also now going to scale with 10% per 100 bonus AD. And then, for the final champion being changed for this patch, we've got some adjustments to Xin Zhao. Passive heal AP ratio is being changed from 65% at all levels to 50 scaling to 75% based on level. W slow duration now scales with 0.5 seconds per 100 AP. E AP ratio is going up from 60 to 120%. E bonus attack speed is going to be dropping from 40 scaling to 80% to 38 scaling to 70%. E bonus attack speed now scales with 10% per 100 AP. And there's a new effect to Zen E to where bonus attack speed now scales with 1% per 5% bonus attack speed from non-buff sources. Okay guys, one last thing. Our rank up guarantee is absolutely insane. It's kind of like signing up for the gym and then just getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with the top players, the rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb as easy as possible. If you're ready to level up, just visit skillcapped.com and literally see the difference. So there you have it, everyone. Definitely a nice change in pace from what we've gotten used to in recent patches, as up until this one, things have been a little bit of a snooze fest for a while. So it's nice that Riot is back with a bigger patch for 26.9. Seriously guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.